Thanks so much for joining us, Toria.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. How are you holding up in this quarantine in these days?
I mean, I have the luxury, I guess, of being in school and having that be some type of distraction for the time being. So it's nice. Like right now, I still have deadlines and things that I have to keep up with. So it's given me some type of like framework to maintain like a schedule and some sense of normalcy. But once that's done, I'm not really sure. I'm kind of going to try and like have myself aiming towards like keeping busy with music and like communicating better with friends and writing letters and doing all the things that you always say you'll do but never do. So I'm trying to make the best of it, I guess.
Okay, great. So your new album, From Her Rib, just came out in March. What is the album about?
Oh goodness. The album, oh well, I don't think I've ever had somebody ask me that before. I guess it's kind of about my journey going through falling in love with someone, and all the different feelings that happen throughout, like the feeling of this could last forever, and the feelings of I'm way too cool for you, and the feelings of I don't know, unrequited love sometimes, but I think it ties together nicely. With this one, as opposed to my other one, I've kind of tried to make it flow a little bit better, where I've added in some monologues to like kind of tie in certain parts that almost feel like left unsaid. So I guess it's mostly about love and kind of finding yourself in love and not having it just be about the other person, but also about you and your own emotions too, I suppose.
And what kind of music were you listening to that inspired you and helped maybe push this project forward?
Um, I I've only ever had like a few artists or a few songs, I suppose, where I've heard and I've been like, yeah, I'd like to make something like that, because generally I try and steer away from that, because I find when you do that, you end up making something that's like geared for, like, you already have your final destination in mind. So when you do that, it's kind of harder to create freely and let it happen. It's kind of, you already have this pedestal that you've created. So I generally try to not like compare or try and take inspiration from other people. I try and just like keep it as focused on myself as possible, I guess. But I do listen to a lot of, like, I'm sure you can hear it in my vocals and stuff. When I was growing up, I really loved Lana Del Rey. She was a really big inspiration for me. She was the first artist that I ever like saved money and went to a big city so I could see her play, and it was really cool. And I think I take a lot of my like feelings for music, and the emotions that I let out are definitely in the same vein as her, like that longing, that loving kind of thing, but also the freedom mixed in there. But as far as like production and things like that, I've been listening to like a lot of Little Uzi Vert and like Travis Scott, and kind of trying to do a mix of like the soft vulnerability, but still have it maybe be like a little more like, not like catchy, but like a little more like um upbeat, a little bit more of a flow to it. So I would say, yeah, Lana Del Rey, and probably like even like Mac DeMarco. I love his like synths that he uses and things like that. I try and take a lot of inspiration from as many places as possible as well. Like not just trying to stick to one genre when I do, but yeah.
And what about some other forms of media that may have influenced you or brought some inspiration throughout your life? So let's start with movies. What would you say are your top three favorite movies?
Oh goodness. I really love oh goodness, Virgin Suicides will always be one of my favorites. The cinematography throughout it is just like gorgeous. It's one of the only movies that I've ever seen where I've read the book and been like, okay, the book holds nothing compared to the movie. And I don't think anybody ever says that. Sophia Coppola really She did amazing with that. She's the director of that movie, and it's one of my favorite movies I've probably ever seen. I have a really dark sense of humor too, so I really appreciate movies that can do it properly, I guess. And New Zealand kind of, I find, has that same type of humor, that like dark sense, that very dry, like cut humor. So I really like this movie called What We Do in the Shadows. It's from New Zealand. Really, really cool film. Really dark at moments, so it's not for everyone, but I think it's hilarious. Um, and my third, there's one. It's called Legends of the Fall. It's from like the '90s. It's Brad Pitt is in it. Cinematically, it's shot in some places in Saskatchewan. I'm pretty sure, like in the western parts of America. So it's definitely like got the beautiful paysage, like the pretty countries, like landscape, and it's it teaches like indigenous perspective, like mildly okay for a '90s movie, and Brad Pitt is very beautiful, and the storyline is very, very, very well done. It's like a 3 hour long movie, but like very worth it if you get all the way through. Yeah. And as far as like other media and means like that, I'm a photographer. I'm like a photojournalist. So sometimes I don't necessarily draw like direct inspiration, but I find that being able to like express myself in any creative means possible, it's like once you like open the tap, everything flows. So if I have a really good like photo day, it's like, oh, I'm gonna go home and like write a song now because it's like the ball's kind of rolling, I guess. Yeah.
So speaking of movies, I know you have some acting credits. You were in a film called The Big Gust.
Yeah.
What's the story behind that?
The story behind that is my friend Gavin, he's the director of that film, and he actually had an actress lined up. She was like super beautiful. The role was supposed to be like a pretty girl. And she ended up like dropping out the day that they were shooting. So like everybody was on set, everything was set to go, and they didn't have anyone. So he texted me just asking me if I was interested, or and I said yes. So I went down and I shot it with them. It wasn't anything like that was supposed to be planned or anything like that. It was very last minute, but I loved it. It was lots of fun. I would totally do something like that again. I think if I could be anything else besides a singer, I'd be like a weird stand up comedian and actress just because, like, it's so fun. I don't know.
You have a song called Nintendo 64. What would
Mm.
you say is your all-time favorite video game?
Oh goodness, come now. Of course it's Mario Kart. Yes, at my lake when I was growing up, we had like the old Nintendo 64, and that was what we would do, like not every morning, but a large majority of mornings would be spent just like playing and racing with my siblings. And we still have it. I still use it.
Let's talk about palmistry. Do you know how to read palms?
I know some things about ponds actually. How did you know that? Yeah, I have 3 or 4 books that I keep just on my bedside table, mostly because it helps me look cool, and I have a poster in my room, but also because I think that there's some value to it. I mean, I'm not a be all and end all. If you're a Scorpio, we can't be friends and things like that, but I think that there is some legitimacy to it. My favorite line, I went to go see someone once, and he looked at my hands and he said, "Wow, that's very interesting." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "You have the lines of a polo, and this line, your ring finger. You can see on my hand. I don't know if you can. It's so deep that there's a line right here. So it kind of engraves my hand, and what it means is." That I choose my destiny. Whatever I want, if I think and reflect on it enough, it'll happen. And he said that a lot of people that are celebrities have those lines. So I was like, oh, wow. It's meant to be then.
Uh,
But that's about all I know. Whenever I meet someone, I look to see if they have those lines. I also know how many kids people are having based on these lines here. I always look for that too.
Now, finally, just returning to your music, what is next for Toria Summerfield?
What is next? So I would really like to. I have a website kind of right now that's just my music, and I'd really like to have it be developed a little bit more where I include some of my other creative media. So, like, I had some poetry come out in a newspaper, a couple interviews and stuff that I'd like to include on there. So, I'd like to make my website a little bit more of a place where people can go and learn more about me as opposed to just having links to my music. So that's something that I'm going to try and develop a little bit better over the next few months here. I also have a project coming out with Trash Garden. They're a group from BC in Canada. They're amazing. They're these cool girls. I met one of them in Cuba when I was 17. We were both on vacation and just like immediately clicked. And then 3 years later, we both just started making music and kind of started talking over social media again. And they came to visit me in December, and we made a little mixtape together. So that'll be coming out over the next few months here. I kind of just got to get it mixed and mastered with my producer, which is kind of a little bit more difficult right now. So we'll see. It might take a little bit longer than previously anticipated, but I have that coming out. And I've also kind of set the goal for myself that I would like to learn more on the producing end of music, because right now I do play guitar and ukulele, and I do have a good ear, like when I'm working with my producer, to say, all right, let's turn this up and kind of things like that. And I'd like to get better at that aspect of the music where I'm able to just like produce songs all on my own, or like at least get a bass going. So when I meet with a producer, I'm, more equipped, I suppose. So I'd like to have a little like, I don't know, like a even not necessarily an album, but just like a little mixtape or something come out where it's just me by myself working on production. I want to buy like one of those little pianos and kind of just like mess around in my basement for a little bit and see what I come up with. So hopefully I'll have that coming out by the end of the summer. That's kind of like a goal that I'm going to set for myself, so that way I keep like some semblance of like sanity throughout this. But yeah, nothing super big. I would like to start playing more shows, if anything, if I could. Like when I do play shows at the moment, I have a projector up that like displays a video that goes along with what I'm singing. But I'd like to have it be more of like a live band if I can. So I'd like to kind of make some contacts with people and see if I could get like somebody playing bass or something while I'm playing a show, and kind of develop my like on stage presence a bit better as well. But as far as like a serious album coming out, um, the last one was kind of really draining on me, if I'm being honest, emotionally. And I think I kind of just need to like take a step away from being so serious about music and kind of maybe enjoy it a bit more. So I think before I put out like a serious album, it'll probably be at least a year. So I just want to kind of give myself a bit of like a breather, I guess, to like reflect on my feelings more and what I actually want to say, instead of, I feel like I've been kind of writing a lot of like love albums lately. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but I feel like that's generally what the female narrative is, and I would just kind of like to develop and grow from that a bit more. I'd like to just like talk about something else, and I think that kind of just takes time. So yeah.
Okay, great. So that concludes our interview, but thanks so much for taking the time, Toria. It was great to hear from you. For all Toria's listeners out there, From Her Rib is out now on all streaming platforms. So definitely go take a listen. And yeah, thanks again, Toria. Thanks for taking the time.
My pleasure, my absolute pleasure, honestly.